first time I found myself caught between fight and flight, I was 9 years old. I was in 4th grade. I didn't fight or flee. I froze. It was a horrible feeling. I felt helpless and paralyzed. Do you remember 4th grade? I sure do. I'll never forget it. That was the time I lost my voice. It lasted a really long time. I could still make sounds. I talk with my friends a lot. I just lost the ability to speak up for myself. Besides talking with my friends, I loved comic books and I watched cartoons for hours. I loved imagining the way the world could be. I was like an optimist in training. The possibilities in the future fascinated me, but the past, on the other hand, really didn't. We had the subject in 4th grade called social studies. What's the new name for it? History? You know, when did Sparta fight Athens? What weapons did they use? Compare and contrast their governments? Well, yeah. Social studies held zero interest for me. So you can imagine how I felt one day sitting in social studies, minding my own business. Maybe I was daydreaming a little. My teacher came by, and he dropped on our desk a 100-page packet on ancient Greece. 100 pages. I started leafing through it, praying that he'd say something like, let's just jump to page 25. But instead, he said those fateful words, and he seemed really happy about it. He said, we're going to do the whole thing. I guess 4th grade is when history buffs are made, but for me, if you're like me, the possibility of working page by page through this packet felt like crossing an endless desert with no shade. The only good news is he gave us all spring to do it. He didn't even teach. He just let us work at our own pace, as if we knew what that meant. It didn't matter to me. I put it on the side. I had better things to do. Did I mention it was spring? I had friends to talk to, plans to make. We didn't worry about some ancient battle that happened thousands of years ago. We had an important, epic battle coming up on the playground at recess. See, I was a member of a gang, and we had rumbles with other gangs. You have to picture 9-year-old private school kids. These rumbles were all talk and no fighting. We had a lot of chest pounding about, like, who was faster. That was a big thing in 4th grade. And dramatic turf battles. The winner got to hang out at the swing set. This was important stuff. I was a member of a gang called the Horny Toads. Don't ask. We were a tough gang of all the Jewish kids in our class. We were fierce. Besides all this gang activity, I had to spend time figuring out ways to send messages with my best friend across the back of a class so we could cheat on tests. Don't try this at home. So we had to figure out ways to communicate because we didn't have phones or texting then, so we had to figure out our own sign language. So you can see I was very busy in 4th grade. I may not have been winning 4th grade, but I was having a very good time. Ancient Greece was the last thing on my mind until about April. And that's when I realized, I looked up and I saw my friends were about halfway done their packets. And I looked down at mine and I had barely started, and panic set in. I had never been behind before. Everything in school had come easy for me. I had no idea how to pace my time. We were only in 4th grade. I just kept thinking, I'm going to fail this stupid class because of this stupid packet. I couldn't afford that. That word stupid kept circling my brain like a bird looking to perch on a wire. Stupid was the last thing I could afford to be. I waved it away. I was the good kid. I was easy. I was smart. I still remember that feeling when stupid landed on my shoulders, in my body. I felt my throat tighten. I forgot to breathe. Time slowed down. I froze. I didn't know what to do. I didn't have any moves up till then. My best move was not making any waves. I was really good at this. So I convinced myself, everything would go smoother if I just didn't make any waves. No one would get bothered. But you know what else didn't get bothered? Of course, the people who needed to know that I was in trouble. If I asked my parents for help, they would find out I wasn't as smart as they thought I was. I could risk losing everything that mattered to me in 4th grade. That reassuring pat on the head that told me I was on the right track. That faith in me as an easy child, their belief in me. In my 9-year-old mind, I thought I'd lose their love. So pretty soon, I let that silence sort of hold down the panic in my throat and my chest. And pretty soon I was weaving together those threads of silence into a blanket that I hid under. I held tight to this facade of good and smart and easy, but underneath, I was freaking out. Time kept moving forward, and I kept getting further behind on this packet, and I realized I was reaching a crossroads. I couldn't figure out how to throw that blanket off. I felt like all the shame that had accumulated would just bury me. But here I was at this crossroads. I could either come clean and tell the truth, or I could lie. With a few days left to go before the packet was due, I took it behind my parents' house and I dropped it through the slats in the wooden deck, where no one would ever find it. I told them I lost it. I can still see myself lying, like from the outside. I couldn't believe that they believed me. I made this choice to become the kid that I thought they wanted me to be. As a result, I felt small enough where I could fit through the cracks in a wooden deck, where no one would ever find me. I was terrified and lost and alone. And that feeling lasted a long time. I held tight to that facade of nothing to see here, everything's fine on the outside, but on the inside, scared as hell. It lasted all the way into college and beyond. But I did find my way back. It took about 20 years after I dropped that packet through the deck that I did find my way back to reclaiming my voice. Here I was in graduate school training to become a psychologist. And I was having flashbacks to 4th grade. Imagine. No, not the rumbles, although what would be funnier than 9-year-olds rumbling? Probably psychologists, right? All talk, no action. No, I was having flashbacks because I felt completely behind. I was overwhelmed. I was completely lost in class. If my t-shirt could read what I was thinking, it would say, "What was I thinking?" I was sitting there in class. All I could do was calculate all the time and the money I was wasting. I was freaking myself out. And pretty soon that feeling came back in my body, in my throat, in my chest. Time slowed down. I had to step out of class just to compose myself. I went to the water fountain, and when I stood up and turned around, there was my professor looking right at me. I wondered, could he see through my facade? Could he see how lost and overwhelmed I felt? Maybe he'd put his hand on my shoulder and reassure me. Maybe he'd even say, I get it. This is too much for you. Maybe you should drop out. But instead he said, you did a really good job in class. I couldn't even remember what we were talking about in class. If I had done a job, if I had raised my hand, participated, I don't think I made any sense. So I'm sitting there trying to figure out how to respond to this compliment when he said something else that I had never, ever heard before. It felt like a ray of light shone through the slats in the wooden deck. He said, "Robert, you have really good ideas. You should talk more. Your classmates would benefit from hearing what you have to say." Wow. I had spent 30 years doing the exact opposite, doing everything I could not to speak up. You know these tricks. You rehearse what you're going to say, you analyze the situation, you go back over it again, just delaying long enough where you don't have to participate. But here he was inviting me out from under the deck. Wow. When I look back and I think about all the energy I spent, all those years silencing myself, it makes me sad. But I look around, I realize I'm not alone. Many of us silence ourselves, hold back on opportunities to speak up and be heard. So now I look around and I see all the people silencing themselves and all the potential that we all miss out on. It actually makes me angry. What does it cost to hold our true selves back? To us and to the people around us. That day at the water fountain was the first step back. It didn't happen right away, but I started to raise my hand more, speak up. Each time I did, I got a little more confident. I grew more power. I felt more energetic. And you know what? I started to attract other people to me who seemed to reflect that energy. It seemed like they were on the same path. And the cool part is, we would sort of exchange energy and build on each other. My friend Kara and I started a group for young professionals. And I would come up with an idea for a program, and that would inspire her. And then she'd come up with a marketing angle, and that would fire me up. And we'd grow and grow and grow. It was like the opposite of that downward spiral I experienced in 4th grade. Instead of weaving threads of silence together to form a blanket, Now I was taking threads of courage and weaving them together into something that felt like the cape a superhero would wear. Reclaiming my voice, my power, created this upward spiral. And each step I took out from under that deck brought me closer to a realization. I have superpowers. They were always in there, I just didn't embrace them. But now I do. I practice them every day. I'm curious. I'm creative. I weave ideas together. I'm an innovator. Now, this isn't the story of an overnight epiphany. I didn't come out from under the deck a fully formed superhero. Everything that I've achieved has come through the result of daily hard work. Every morning I get up early to fight for my opportunity to get to the chair, to sit, to write, to dream big, to create. In the last 4 years alone, I've dreamed up and created a book, an online course, a new coaching program. I've launched a podcast, and I've designed a new kind of school. I published the book 3 years ago, and episodes of the podcast come out every Tuesday. And that school is going to get built. See, as a positive psychologist, I have an opportunity to help other people create their own upward spirals. I stand on the shoulders of groundbreaking research led by Martin Seligman, the father of positive psychology, who helped identify the 24 character strengths found across every culture and every time in history. And then researchers like Barbara Fredrickson took those strengths into the lab, and they discovered amazing things, a tipping point, an upward spiral you created that could broaden your focus and build capacity. You see, as a positive psychologist, I get to be a pioneer in a new kind of field. Originally, I was trained to find problems and fix problems, but my problem is I don't see problems. I see potential. I see superheroes everywhere. In fact, I see a sea of them in front of me. What if today was the beginning of your superhero journey? Ask yourself, how could I become indispensable to the people in my life, to my family, to my community, to my classmates? It doesn't matter where you start, just start. For instance, if you're curious, find something new to learn every day. If humor fires you up, join an improv comedy group. Make people laugh. If your unique superpower is citizenship, find ways to bring people together and unite them in your community. And if you're creative like me, carve out time to make something. Make a commitment to show up every day, to access your strength, to practice it, to strengthen it. The time is ripe. Look at the example of the Parkland students and the courage they displayed. Look at movements like Black Lives Matter, the Me Too movement. This could be you on this stage telling your story. Or you may be at the next rally taking the microphone to demand change. And when you do take that stage, your stage, in whatever form it takes, people see the light in you. You may inspire others to embrace their superpowers. So I'm going to close by repeating to you what my professor said to me at that water fountain that day. You have really good ideas. You should talk more. Your classmates would benefit from hearing what you have to say. Thank you.